Hi, everyone. Welcome to an afternoon session with BACC. My name's Hope. I'm going to be the moderator today. There is a 10-second delay, and I can hear my own voice. So if I sound weird, that is why. But we will work through it. Just to give you guys some context about who I am real quick. I am a local entrepreneur here in Oakland. I've been operating 2 businesses for about 6 years now. Both of them focus on supporting women of color entrepreneurs and Black women entrepreneurs. And I'm also the operations director for Runway Project, which is a Black businesses financing program. And we provide funding for Black businesses with a framework focused on equity and racial justice. So just sharing that spiel real quick. And then today's session is focused on securing the bag. So what that means logistically is we're going to talk about how to take advantage of big opportunities as a business owner. And I'm curious, especially to get into how our panelists have been doing this during COVID-19, as it has been a pretty stressful year, but also a lot of innovation in our communities is occurring. So we're going to start with introduction, and I'm going to have each of the panelists go around in 1 to 2 minutes to just share your background. Sorry, y'all. Siri is trying to listen to our conversation. I apologize. So please tell us about you, your background, your role and work within the financial sector, business, and ecosystem. And and just try to keep it to 2 minutes. And I'm going to pass it to Ivellisse to start us off.
Thank you, Hope. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So my name is Ivellisse. I go by Evie for short. And I lead BACC, which is a branding and design agency for social change. And we're a national network of diverse creatives of different backgrounds and disciplines who are conspiring to help nonprofits and social enterprises advance systems change. And so I'm traditionally trained in public relations, and my entire career has been really at the intersection of marketing, branding, design, and social change. That has looked like corporate social responsibility at agencies, working in-house at nonprofits, and now servicing them with great graphic design and talent at BACC. I'm a military kid. I've lived around all over the place, around the world. My parents are from the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, and I've been living in the Bay for 6 years now, and I really call this home. I also call Boston home, so there's a nice connection there too. And in terms of my role, I'm a small business owner. We are growing thanks to the PPP loan and an SBA loan. Right now we manage 7 projects and 9 contractors, some of whom have become employees, which is pretty amazing. So now I'm an employer, taxpayer on the double side. I'm a connector, and I'm also proud to be an instructor and mentor for Optima Business Bootcamp. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Ivellisse. And let's pass it on to Bret.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bret Sweet. That's actually my name. It's not my Twitter handle or anything, or my rap name. I inherited it from my father. Before we move on, I know I look like Adam Sandler. It's not my fault. I know I sound like Steve-O from Jackass. I didn't choose that either. So if you can stop laughing at me when I can't see you, then my self-esteem will recover. Martin, good to see you. Shout out. So I work with the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center in the East Bay. I'm the program director. We generally cover the areas from Eastern Contra Costa, which is Antioch, Brentwood, Pittsburgh, all the way down to Richmond, all the way through El Cerrito, Emeryville, Berkeley, through Oakland, all the way out to deep east, far east Oakland, San Leandro, unincorporated. Alameda County. And so we essentially help businesses, micro enterprises get started, build networks around them and markets around them, and help them get access to capital, access to other resources. This is generally what we do. Some of the stuff that I did to get into this, I started off originally in the music industry when I was a kid. And at 94, 95, I came up with an idea to download rap from my AOL account. And at that time, media was not proven to even be a part of the internet, much less everybody was telling us this rap and hip hop wasn't going to be around next year. And so that kept pushing me as I evolved my career to find out about systems. And also I was always curious about ideas that people thought were going to go away and then also became modern day kind of tools. And so I've worked in the entertainment industry, I've worked in event management, I've done a lot of production in the gaming industry, I've worked in finance as both a venture capitalist and private equity, and I've worked in a lot of social enterprises. I was employee number 4 at Build. I've done a lot of stuff with Nifty. And I guess more recently, I kind of built out Coconuts Palo Alto and Backyard, helped build CoBiz in Richmond. And so a lot of my work now, and as an entrepreneur myself, I own a real estate firm with my wife. I'm very much interested in the connection between spaces and places and people, and making sure that there's a sense of safety and a sense of a growing and self-sustaining autonomous system that makes sure people who look like us can grow and raise their families. So I see entrepreneurship and community development as one and the same. I think I'm going, should I pass it off or would you like to pick the next person, Hope?
Next person, Bret.
I'm going to pass it off to Abby.
All right, thanks, Bret. My name is Abby VanMuijen. I am the founder of Rogue Mark Studios. We're a creative studio that focuses on graphic recording and illustrated videos and animation. So we have a team of artists all over the Bay who come together to work on different projects for all sorts of different clients, whether they're corporate clients or nonprofits, individuals, filmmakers. We sort of dabble in all sorts of different content. But I am Bay Area born and raised. I have grown up in grown up and lived in a lot of really different communities around the Bay, some very well invested in, and more recently went to school and live around in less well invested in communities in the Bay Area. So that has been a really interesting growing experience for me as an entrepreneur. And I think it, is something that I care a lot about when I'm thinking about how I'm building my business. What else? I think, I don't know. I dabble in and out of being a creative myself, sort of freelancer, gig economy artist, and also coordinating projects for other artists and sort of occupying more of a business owner and employer space. But yeah, that's me. Andrew, you're up.
Everyone, can you hear me? How you doing? I'm Andrew Williams, or Coach Drew. If you're a kid, you'd probably call me Coach Drew. To keep it short and sweet, am here for the kids as a practitioner in youth development, as a soccer coach, but also have been a teacher and lots of various other forms of interacting with and for youth, side by side and behind them. Something I think that's relevant to this conversation is I'm one of the co-founders of the 2020 conference, which is an annual summer program for high school Bay Area youth, capacity building, and basically connecting them with different avenues and different ideas and different questions and different people to spark community and spark conversation in kind of a one-room schoolhouse format. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have that this summer, but the 2020 conference we launched in 2017 with the idea of it being the culminating year. So we still have that network of kids that we're supporting, even though we didn't have the physical conference this year. I am the executive director of East Bay United Soccer Club, which is an Oakland-based nonprofit that serves about 2,000 kids every year, ranging from preschool age up to 18 years old, with various forms of soccer program, running from outreach programs at Parks and Rec, to more intense kind of elite level training for boys and girls that want to make it to their highest potential. Before I really switched or came back to my love of youth development, I had been in the music business for not a long time, but maybe 10 years, but starting at age 16 as a DJ. And so I think my ideas as an entrepreneur were really sharpened as a kid selling CDs and selling myself as an artist and working with other independent artists, and eventually kind of transitioned sharply out of the music game into coaching. But I still have a very kind of, I think, entrepreneurial interest in the nonprofit sector and efficiency and disclaimer, I'm definitely a socialist. So when I'm talking about business, I just want to be clear that the business is not the point. But I'm also not scared of money, and I think that's going to be a theme of this conversation. I think a lot of us want to make change, and we kind of shy away from some of the nuts and bolts. So I'm not scared of money, but it is a means to an end, and I think we need to move past capitalism. So I just want to clarify that when we talk about entrepreneurship, I'm not talking about capitalism, and I'm not talking about ownership of people and labor and profits. I'm talking about marshaling resources to impact change. And not once I get rich, then I can give back, but really making sure that as we are entrepreneurs every day that our business or our nonprofit is operating, it's a net good for the people around us. So that's kind of my angle here. And I'll pass it back to.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Eric. And yeah, I appreciate you sharing, Andrew, as well. It's funny how I feel like we have to out ourselves as socialists, but I think we're all here to make sure that folks can thrive. All right. So just to give folks context who are joining as the intros were happening, today we're really going to get into how to take advantage of big opportunities as a small business. Sorry, you guys, I can hear my voice. Doing my best. But really, oftentimes entrepreneurs don't know what we don't know, right? We need information about marketing, about taking advantage of big opportunities, exploring the pain points, and really figuring out how to best serve our community in a way that is aligned with our capacity, so we're not burning ourselves out. And we really want to think about, in the context of this global pandemic this year, how have each of us taken advantage of opportunities and really work through our own infrastructure and self-care. And each of the panelists here are, as they've shared, are experts in their own fields. And so we're going to get into the conversation. Okay, so the first question I have for you all is, what is an opportunity that you've been able to engage with this year, whether it's a result of COVID, or if it's just an opportunity that came your way regardless of the global pandemic, or what's been going on with the continuous racial injustice towards Black folks. And then how did you secure that opportunity, and what have you been able to sort of do with it? So I am going to pick on Ivellisse to just start us off.
Thank you. So I've been building BACC for 2.5 years, and one element that has, in a way, made us pandemic proof is that since day one, it's been a home-based business. And so, I'm building a business from a laptop. A lot of the work is virtual and collaborative, which has allowed me to build relationships and partnerships with people across the country. So what's amazing is that the creative collective that we're building has folks all over. We had a great staff meeting where we had folks in Atlanta, Puerto Rico, New York, California, Washington, and it's all because of the beauty of the internet and having clients who are also nimble and collaborative in that way. So to be honest, I was already feeling isolated and sick and tired of working from home before COVID hit. But, you know, that work from home lifestyle is something that wasn't a big adjustment. Financially, you know, we did take a hit in the first half of the year because naturally all of our clients closed their doors and pinched their budgets to just deal with what we were all globally grappling with. And so, you know, with creative projects, you know, they come in all shapes and sizes. And so sometimes I just have to say yes to a lot of little projects to make cash flow. And at the same time, build the relationships and partnerships that turn into bigger projects. And so I've learned that, you know, it takes almost 2 months to go from initial consultation call to a check in my hand. And so I know that, you know, let's take on 2 to 3 month based projects. So that gives me time as the CEO to go after 6 month to 12 month retainers. I do have a 12-month retainer with the client, which is amazing. I got creative and proposed to one new client if they could pay us up front for a 5% discount. Didn't work, but just trying to figure out a way to like, let me get this cash now. Also, people-powered partnerships. I've been in contracts with other Black-owned creative studios who bring in a different skill set to the work. And so it almost becomes like a greater collective in a way and more powerful in design and output. And so leaning on each other, referring each other. I just did the math. So of the 24 clients we've had this year, basically 80% are from my network and the rest were referrals. So like someone from my network introduced me to somebody else that they knew was looking for our services. And so, you know, one thing that really has astounded me and that I'm grateful for every day is that truly it feels like a community movement because it's like I'm working with people I know. And then, you know, we then hire each other. You know, I've had one client move to another organization and hire us because they really enjoyed working with us. And so when you build good relationships with your customers and your clients, they'll want to keep you. And we've evolved as they've evolved. You know, we didn't start off doing website work. And now for the right fit and size project, if our client wants us to do that, we'll take care of it for them. So, you know, really staying flexible and nimble and of course, leaning on my community. I have to shout out Optima Business Bootcamp again and the Runway Project because those are my entrepreneur circles where, you know, when COVID first hit, I mean, it was a struggle to like get on Zoom and get on a call. But if it wasn't for those bi-monthly meetings and weekly check-ins with my mentor, you know, I would be mentally and emotionally in a different place right now. So they've seen all the ups and downs. We've held space for each other and, you know, recognize how hard it is to, you know, it's already risky and scary to run a business. So that layered on top of, you know, the twin pandemics is a lot, but it just speaks to our resilience.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ivellisse. And not just to give Ivellisse a shout out, she's helping my second business, Just to Be. We're a Black women's business community, and we're launching. So we put on the largest Black women's holiday market in the Bay Area, and this year it's going to be online because of a pandemic. And so we're doing innovative things and building out this platform online and being very bold in a time that feels very overwhelming. And Ivellisse is helping us with our rebrand of this market. So y'all, she's popping. Please hit her up. All right. Let's hear from Andrew. What are some opportunities that you've been able to take advantage of during this time or sort of make? I feel like a lot of us are turning lemons into lemonade, you know, to bring in Beyonce.
I think we're also getting sick of lemonade. I used to love it. You know, it is the truth though. So two things I want to say is, or the general point is that the opportunities come by, and whether or not you can take advantage of them is going to be a result of what you were doing for the 6 months or the 6 years before that. And so two examples of that is, you know, I stepped into what was potentially my dream job, getting to lead potentially the biggest youth soccer club in the East Bay. You know, I'm a lifetime soccer coach, and like, oh, all these ideas I've had, now they'll have to listen to me and I can just do all the things that and then that's April, right? And it's like, oh, wait, I'm now the executive director of a youth soccer club and we can't even play soccer. And I was obviously thrown into the fire. And my first challenge and success and opportunity was to work with our board of directors to tell them why we did not need to lay off all of our staff. And I can't think of anything that was more fulfilling as an organizational leader to feel like, whoa, when you think about impact on people, like that day, like, oh my goodness, like they were going to lay people off if I weren't the ED. Like that was going to happen. That was going to happen. And that's just like an incredible feeling. And the preparation was years of, and this is the advice part, you need to tell people why they need you and where they need you, especially as leaders of color. They didn't just turn to me one day and were like, hey, do you want to be the executive director? We had you in mind. Like, that's not how it happened. You know, that's not how it happened at all. That was slow roasted over years, and probably a lot more years than it would have taken if I looked something else or if I was something else. But the fact that I was in a position to influence that decision was really a product of the preparation. And part of that, from the advice standpoint, is making sure that organizations that you're already at, especially, not when it's time to look for a new job, but our organizations where you currently are, you need to tell them where and why they need you, and you need to show them. The second thing is the PPP loan. You know, we got $200,000 PPP loan that'll become a grant, which is a game changer. And as hard as it is to get a PPP loan, it's actually been the easiest part of my job. Like, compared to getting a grant from the city of Oakland, getting a PPP loan, like if you were in line, you just had to fill out the form. But again, were you in line? And so we were very fortunate to have, you know, relationships. And it was the third one, you know, two of those three banking relationships would not have gotten us a PPP loan. And so one of the first things that banks did is they said, we're not extending PPP loans to new clients. You know, you can't just walk in there and open an account and get a PPP loan, especially on that first round. So again, that was an example of being able to take advantage of an opportunity because of the things that were already in place. So you really need to look at what, not just like what are the opportunities, but what opportunity is going to happen in 6 months or 6 years, and what do we want to have lined up as individuals and also as organizations. So the two opportunities I would say is the opportunity to lead and the opportunity to get that bag of $200,000, which, you know, for an organization that is under $2 million a year, that's crazy significant. You know, that's a game changer when you depend mostly on program registrations and programs not running. And even when it does, third part I'll just add on is financial aid. Again, opportunity to be able to call families and tell them your kid can still play soccer as always because we have that financial aid program. That's an opportunity to me. That's the best part of my job right now. Not that I'm excited that people are having these tough times, but it's nice to make that phone call and tell them, oh yeah, just let's go, let's do it. So those have been opportunities that have been positive in the last 6 months.
True. That's so real. The 6 months of foundational work ahead of time, and maybe if we have time, we could talk about the PPP loan because there's some clear connections there. Abby, can you share with us what opportunities you've been able to take advantage of during this time and how you secured them?
Sure. It was really interesting when the prompt question of what opportunities you've been able to sort of take advantage of. My brain very quickly went to like, what was the, you know, largest budget project that came up, or you know, like what new clients and what new sort of projects have we been able to secure. And that is not what I think my biggest opportunity over the last sort of 6 months has been. I think that for the most part, our business changed with COVID, but we had enough different sort of types of projects and different sorts of clients that it all sort of adjusted, and it's not, as far as a revenue standpoint, that different from beforehand. And so I think that my biggest opportunity has been to reflect a lot and take a pause and think about, as a leader and as a business owner, in particular as a white business owner. I'm also a queer person, so I think my biggest opportunity has been to sort of step into, thinking about what is my role as a white business owner, and how can I give back to the community that my business is a part of. I was in the quality jobs session earlier, and it was so rejuvenating to be in a conversation about like, what is a quality job, not just what is a job that pays people some money, but like, what is a quality job that helps build a quality community that like really invests in that entire ecosystem. And so I think my biggest opportunity has been to sit down and shut up and listen. I think that one of the really wonderful just opportunities or initiatives or just sort of organic things that has come up for us in the last 6 months has been being able to use our studio space that currently doesn't have anyone working in it, and all of our art supplies to host community sign making. So we just, after George Floyd was killed, we as a team were kind of like, we want to make some art, and started spray painting signs just outside. And a bunch of neighbors walked by and were like, can we make a sign? And since then we've made signs for 6 hours every day for a couple weeks, and are now, with our neighbors came out, and we are now having community barbecues with sign making and things like that. And it's been such a source of joy, both for our business, but for our whole neighborhood and community. And that was something that we had, never did before. So it was just really beautiful to like fall back into like what the core of our business was, and engage our neighbors and our community and be able to share it.
Abby, I really appreciate that. The first thing you said was that the opportunity I had was to pause and listen. Because I don't know about y'all, but I've been running like 5,000 miles per hour since COVID occurred. So I've thought a lot about we're also being caused to pause and reflect. And what's our trauma response, Like, is it to throw down and to just do the work, and to solve the problem, or is it to pause? So I appreciate you bringing that up. Bret, and the work that you do with supporting entrepreneurs all over the Bay Area, what are some opportunities and things that you've seen and things that you've gotten involved in during this time? Or ways your work maybe has changed?
Yeah, I think one of the major opportunities that Renaissance and myself have been involved in is we were able to set up a $500,000 grant program for micro enterprises in Contra Costa County. There's a couple pieces to how that happened. I think I want to step back. There's a lot of things that were said earlier by my co-panelists that are just, they have to be repeated, because I think we're in a time where there's so much information that it just flies through your heads, and it doesn't necessarily receive the same way all the time, and you just let it go out. So I was just sitting there nodding the whole time everyone's talking. I think one of the first things that Andrew said was like, this is a test of what your preparation was. And I was saying this earlier before the panelists talked. I'm a little bit older. I hide my gray in my hair a little bit well, but I grew up on 90s hip hop, and there was a moment where I had to stop and look in the mirror and say, what was all that stuff we were talking about? What did we think were going to happen? What was all those CDs and all these guys that, were and girls that were predicting this time? What did you expect? Are you ready? And so I had to make some decisions internally that I had already made, but just remind myself of why we're here now. What are you doing now? Why are you doing this? Why did you choose not to do these things? And I think those are really important. Without going down too much of a rabbit hole, if you look at the character for a market in both Chinese and Japanese, similar in drawing, pronounced differently, but they ultimately come down to the same concept. It's like water over fire, which is really opportunity over crisis. And I think that these scenarios, the thing that has been so challenging about the pandemic is that it's hit all the sort of macro sort of business environment pieces. It's changed laws, it's changed economies, it's changed culture, it's changed technology, and it's really highlighted things in our ecological system. And so what I was willing to do very clearly was to openly talk about what's not happening. So I'm very proud of myself and my colleagues. By, I think, from March to June, we had maybe helped small businesses in the Bay Area get PPP and EIDL loans, maybe up to $10 million. I think 3 of that was in Oakland alone. And that was great. There was all of a sudden there was these funds, there was these reliefs coming out of nowhere. It was great. Even if some of this is lip service of larger corporations, money talks. There was nothing in Contra Costa. Nothing. No Black Lives Matter, no Black women, no micro enterprise, no nothing. And so I think it, especially in the space of when you are doing funding reports, you're supposed to tell that everything is going well. That is what the job of nonprofits when you report is to be. This is what hey, you gave us money, I'm going to give you the return. I took a risk, and I knew it was going to be a risk, but I was really open about these are all the things that are not going well, right? So for space-based service providers, it wasn't just Renaissance couldn't do programs. No, anybody who was trying to serve young people, anybody who was trying to serve anybody in a space had to figure out new. So everything was shut down. And on top of which, you could not find funding. So that businesses who were being told, one, they needed to pivot and do outside dining. Who has the money for that? Who can hire the contractor from that? PPP, when is that going to arrive? Plexiglass, that's a $5,000 install. That's a facade improvement. People want to go online. That's a laptop you need. You can't. There's this illusion we've taught ourselves over the last 8 years that you can run a business on your phone, right? You think you're gonna. You can take a Samsung Chromebook and you can update your Facebook page, but you can't do QuickBooks on it, right? So there was a lot of things that I had to be very open over and over again about talking about in channels that I knew was going to rock the boat. But I think what it started to do was get conversations with individuals who were saying, well, okay, you're very clear on what's not working. How can we fix it? And it was really about entrepreneurs in this arena need these types of grants, no questions asked. They need this money to keep their doors open so that they can pivot, that they can do it. I think the other challenge was we have not gotten a national policy on COVID. Obviously, as you know, if you didn't get the news last night, we're not going to get one. You had to figure it out on your own. So, for example, let's take the restaurant industry. Each restaurant has to go and do its own safety health check to get its license to open. And that's verified by the Department of Health. But the COVID stuff, there is no backing by the Department of Health because nobody knows the answer. So you have to make this up as you go along. And so I think it was really about being clear about putting together coalitions and putting together alliances and trying to figure this out and rewarding the individuals who are willing to take these A/B test-like risks that says, hey, I figured out how to be a restaurant and do outdoor dining. And it's not just enough that I put up some places for people to sit. I put not only wood, but I put plexiglass and I put fans and gyms that were trying to figure out how to do new types of foggers and cleaning and reward that type of innovation. And I think that's what attracted movement of that much money to say for those people who have already taken the risk and figured this out, they should be rewarded with that income. So I guess to come back to it, I think there's also a question for me about my role. And I think something that has been highlighted that I don't think we talk about enough. My family moved here to the Bay Area from Florida. I'm a descendant of a town called Rosewood, and those folks ran from Rosewood and started something called Jupiter, which my grandfather built. And the idea is that when we came to San Jose, California, but first it was going to be Richmond, California in World War II, that things were going to be different. And I don't know that things have been that different. So when I see things getting burned down in Oakland, in Richmond, across the nation, and I notice the businesses that are being burned down look like the people on this panel, this seems like business as usual for America. And so I think it's really important now that it's on video and it's captured and it's not in a textbook and we're not waiting for the Watchmen to educate us on this or HBO, that we can make more thoughtful and intentional conversations and actions about who is our real competitor, right? Is it each other? Is it funding sources? Or is it issues of poverty and racism and sexism and homophobia that go across the board, that have violent uprisings to back them? And I think that all attracted that kind of mindset. So I think that to capture it and to come back, I think the opportunity is really about being willing to say, hey, I know what the problem is, but be an entrepreneur, also say, here's the solution. I hope that answered your question. I know I talked about it.
No, that was powerful, Bret. Thank you for sharing and bringing in the history as well. I mean, historically, as folks of color, we've been economically disadvantaged. So we've had to create our own opportunities and things that maybe it was going better for other people with the New Deal and different crises and Jim Crow, right? But our communities have always had to figure out how to hustle or make lemonade out of lemons. And I hear you, Andrew, intergenerationally, yeah, we tired out here. It's exhausting. So so let's figure out how to create the new, which is obviously the revolution is happening now. So my question for y'all with all that's going down is, how do y'all keep yourselves motivated amidst everything that's happening in the world? And how have you been able to also like motivate others in your community? I'll leave it open for whoever wants to jump in.
I'll go. I can go super fast. This is the easiest one to answer. I have a 4-month-old son, and I don't want to imagine where my mental state would be if I didn't, put it that way. I don't want to imagine that. I would be in a different space. Literally, I'd be in the street a lot more. But just literally the reset every day is something that I would try to practice anyway, just like resetting every day, starting with reading, not just starting and going right to the email inbox. So I try to practice that anyway, practice, keyword practice. But it does make it a lot easier when you kind of just like the first thing, it's such a tangible reminder of bigger picture and just positivity. He literally doesn't know that shit is on fire. He literally doesn't know. If we do the basics with him, he's gonna have a good day. Mm-hmm. And I think where I would kind of zoom out on that is that everybody on this panel and our whole society in this country comes from a place of privilege when we can look at the news and say, this is the worst it's ever been. It's like, no, really, this is not the worst it's ever been by any stretch of the matter. It might be the most uncomfortable you have been. So, whether you call yourself an activist or at least just an ally, like if you are kind of like tapping out because of 4 years of a certain president or because the money's not flowing, because your state is on fire, literally. I'm not saying it's easy, but it really never has been. And so go sit with your ancestors for a little bit. I had a chance a few weeks ago to drive to Mississippi and literally just sit with my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents in the ground. And it's like, fool, you got 10 minutes and then pull it together. Or, I'm not saying don't tap out and don't take a break, but I just think like finding things to remind you that this is a permanent struggle that we're in, not a rainbow, it's not a, we have all these metaphors around mountaintops that will be reached. That's not it. We're not going to get to a point where we go, we did it. And I don't mean we Black people. I just mean we humans. We cannot let our guard down when it comes to progress. And so I think it's very, it can be depressing to know how permanent the challenge is, but it also kind of ask yourself if you're up for it and be up for it. And just ask what would great-great-grandma say if I was like, I can't take any more of this. It's like, what? Like, okay. So it manifests in my baby, but it's a reminder that there's some permanent kind of human things that we're already going to be challenged with. And the simple things, find that joy in the simple things, you know, just go outside when you can, garden, whatever you need to do, and don't overdose on the news, the quote news.
I'll go next. So I like to say that I'm apocalyptic yet radically optimistic, because you can hold both at the same time. And if you've ever read Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, I feel like I am Lauren Alamina in a metaphorical sense. And, you know, since high school, I feel like I've been prototyping a career, trying to, like, no one ever told me that you can't make a living, make a difference, and be happy, right? And so I've always just gravitated towards social justice work, and I've explored it in different shapes and forms. You know, I've been at agencies where nonprofits were our clients. I've been in-house at nonprofits. You know, I've done corporate social responsibility. And at one point, I was working in disaster mitigation here in California. And every day I was just watching news on climate change and all the real realities facing humanity. And, you know, I did suffer from depression. It did impact my work. It was a little bit too close and too much. And during this time, you know, my family in Puerto Rico was actually suffering from Hurricane Maria. And they went out without power for 7 months. Until this day, they're still smiling and reflecting on it like it was an old gone memory, which I know, you know, there's layers to that conversation on what they're experiencing. But to me, it showed me, you know, compared to my family on the island, I am the privileged one, right? I got to go to a 4-year university. I got to lead a corporate career. And I realized that from a values alignment perspective, doing it the corporate way was not it. And I'm trying to reimagine the creative agency model. It is inhumane in the form of the billable hour. And so I'm trying to answer the question through my business, like, how do you build, you know, a creative studio that's anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and a place where people love to work? Because what I'm doing is creating a space where creatives can use their skills to support conversations around federal paid equity, around racial justice, around gender equity, around caregiving culture. And so Bombay is my gift to the world, and I keep busy with what I can control. And also, you know, I'm an October baby, and Halloween is my favorite holiday. And so on September 9, 2020, when it was orange that day out here in California, I said, it's here. This moment is here. Like, my go bag is ready. I got my plan. You know, so the one thing I do think about is, like, if anyone pulls the plug on the internet, like, it'll be a different world and a different place. But until then, you know, finding humor and really leaning on the people who are in your bubble and who are in your virtual community. Like, we're literally all in this together. And we also need players in all positions. So we need people in government, we need people on the ground doing grassroots organizing, we need people in the corporate world and disrupting those spaces. And it's painful, right? So we could take turns. It's like a relay race. I know many consultants who, you know, go back, you know, and then leave again. And what I've learned is, like, what they do, we can do better. And so I learned their game and I don't like it. And I'm trying to play differently as a business and as an employer and as someone who cuts checks to business providers. You can't be in business without people. So if I go down, you know, other people will feel the pinch too. So it really feels like we're part of this fabric that's being pulled, but we're hanging on tight by the tenacity and the tightness of the threads that we have. So that's one thing that they can't squash.
Let's see, I can go next. I think a constant source of motivation and inspiration for me is if whenever I'm having a bad day or I've watched too much news or too much social media, things like that, I'll try to think of something that I'm like, damn, I wish that this was a thing in the world, or I wish that this was, you know, someone I could reach out to. And then I type that into the internet and then press comma, like Oakland, California. And then I find that something like that exists, or there's someone like doing something like that. And there's just so many people that I don't know, or that I could reach out to or could meet, or there's just so many people, especially in this particular community, doing really amazing, inspiring work. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel. It's really about meeting the people doing the work that already exists. And for me, that's been such an amazing source of motivation, is to just learn and find the people who are already doing such amazing work in, you know, 2 miles away from me or down the street or things like that.
You guys are gonna have to forgive me. I'm a weird Berkeley kid, so I'm gonna talk some esoteric African stuff for you real quick. I think we get all impressed in the society with going to the gym and lifting weight and showing our body, but you know, the arm is 2/3 tricep, 1/3 bicep. It's everything on the back of your body that actually makes your body work. I think that's very much like an entrepreneur. And it's very much like, as we are human, it's the stuff you don't see that makes you functional and makes you great. To use a nerdy analogy, Tony Stark is okay, and he's better with the suit, but if the better he gets, the better the suit gets. So you really got to work on the weak spots. And so what I'd say is take a moment to swim in time. And what that means is there's some stuff that's come before you. There's some staying in the present, and then there's something in the future. And what I mean, what's come before you, I can't highlight what Andrew said enough, is like, you know, my father told me stories about like having to do organizing in basements, you know, because you couldn't use phones because the switch, you know, the police would listen on the switchboard. So they do. And we're complaining on Zoom and sending each other WhatsApp messages about meet me at Lake Merrick to protest, you know, like we have all these great opportunities in front of us. And so I take heart with that. You know, my uncle fought in World War II. He didn't know what Muay Thai is. He didn't know, you know, he didn't know what an AR-15 is. He didn't know what any of this stuff is. So I look at any of these tools and technology and the systems that we have. That's great, you know. My parents never had experience of going to a yoga class, much less being able to complain that they can't have to do yoga at home on YouTube because they can't, you know, they have to shelter in place. So I really just kind of look at that, and I remind myself that all of us are here because of the evolution. And this is not just a shout out to our moderator, who I do like, but I would say to you that human beings, more than anybody else, cooperate and evolve. And the emotional response of that evolution is called hope. And so we have to remember we're the next on the line, and that's how we got here. And then the next piece of that is, do you visualize what success is? I'm blessed. I became a dual citizen of both of this country as well as New Zealand, where my wife is from. And so to be able to look sometimes and see what it looks like when people are let out of their house, to know that hundreds of thousands of people who have never met any of you will march down the street crying Black Lives Matter, knowing that this disease can be beat. This, you know, yeah, holler at me. I got a little plot for you, Andrew. Yeah. But again, I know that we can beat this. And I know that there's somewhere that we can figure this out. And so I think you need those examples and to see it. And it can't always be an escapism, right? And then the next piece, I would say, if you could figure out where you came from and you can figure out where you want to go and you know what the target is, it's going to help you stay in the moment and stay present. And I think you have to have a discipline. There's a gentleman that I very much admire by the name of David Goggins. And he has this philosophy that discipline is freedom. And I think that's one of those things that discipline can come, whether every Monday night at 7 o'clock, you're going to pull out your markers and paint and color with your child, or every Wednesday night you do your Zoom call down to Mississippi. Like, locking in that discipline and do that self-care. For me, I've kind of gone from, you know, for many of the last years, I went back to my roots and started getting back into kickboxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu. And, you know, I'm a fanatic MMA follower, but I found myself over this process just being happy doing Tai Chi in the park, right? and being surrounded by 60-year-old Black women who want to learn Tai Chi, who I don't think would have wanted to try this if not for this pandemic, right? And so just the fact that seeing that's an availability to me, that everything I have to win is right in front of me. And so I can't highlight this enough, how privileged we are, how lucky we are, how fortunate we are that we have the tools, as long as we use them. And I'll say this in closing. There's a gentleman, if you ever read the book, Good to Great, there's a gentleman by the name of, I forget his first name, but his last name is Stockdale. He was the highest ranking officer who was in the Hanoi Hilton. And he developed a great system for people who were being held in a POW camp to get through it. And he talked about the individuals who never made it out of POW camp, even though physically their body had left, they're still in the park staring. Those are the ones who continue to tell themselves, well, surely they'll come and rescue us by Christmas. Surely they wouldn't leave me here on my birthday. So I think we have to remove those benchmarks and say, this will be gone by next year, or we'll be fixed by next year. And we will get to the mountain before I die. And it's more like, I am going to continue to work my system over and over again. And I have a very clear sense for my core values, what success looks like. And so the fact that we're all here, right now talking about subjects like this, I don't think this was a conversation we were having a year ago, much less 4 years ago. And in that in itself, I think is success.
Ashe, y'all shared some really powerful stuff. This panel is off the hook. I mean, I feel very inspired. I'm just going to highlight some quotes real quick before we close out. But I really appreciate you, Andrew, for saying, go sit with your ancestors for a minute, like literally for a minute. I was like, okay, so I'm about to go do that. And Ivellisse, you were sharing we need players in all positions. And I appreciate you also being open about depression and the complexity of honoring our ancestors, but also acknowledging, at least for me, that my ancestors didn't have time to survive, to sit down and to heal from trauma. So even though yoga is a privilege, I also know that I am breaking the cycle in this generation. And I've had spiritual healers tell me that that's our job. The millennials' job is to break the cycle. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go talk about mental health with every relative and make them very uncomfortable. That's my job. No, but I that takes a lot of strength, and we got to keep it balanced. Okay. Abby, thank you for sharing that. That there's just so much community out there that we don't know, and there's someone already doing probably what you need to go do, and to not be afraid to be vulnerable and go connect with new people, especially during this time. That's deep, because COVID, I worry that COVID's creating a generation of folks who are afraid of each other, just because that's kind of the situation, not from a sci-fi level, but that gives me a lot of hope that we can break that and that doesn't become a pattern. And thank you, Bret, for sharing that the motivation is intergenerational, and that we can beat this, and that we always have, and that we're here together in it. Yeah. So to close this out, and we'll just make this a little bit quicker so we stay on time for folks, if folks could just share really quickly, what your advice would be to the audience and the folks listening in around, what does it mean to create your own opportunities? And maybe you could mix in some resources, what would you suggest they take advantage of during this time to make those opportunities a reality? So we'll do rapid fire. Let's start with Andrew.
Quick advice: get a business tax license, register with the city, pay your business taxes. Even if you're a nonprofit, it's free. It seems small, but it's an important you for the next steps. Take the next step and get yourself certified as a local business with your city. It will put you in line for massive opportunities, because a lot of times grant and opportunities are tied to local organizations, and you will have outside organizations that will come to you needing to partner with a local business. You can piggyback with a larger fish. So make yourself official, get your business tax license, pay your taxes, be the right form of organization. There's the right time. If you're on this call, you're ready for that already if you haven't done it. Doesn't mean you have to be an LLC, but at least be official with your local community, because you can't get a bank account, you can't do nothing without that. So that's my step one advice if you haven't done that yet.
Awesome. Oh, Ivellisse, you jumping in?
I was about to say, our little tagline is to do what makes you feel lit on purpose. And so, in a time where it really feels like the world is crashing down, if you focus on what makes you come alive, I mean, I'd imagine for small business owners and entrepreneurs, like, we are doing what we love. And so just remind yourself of the why and your purpose, and use that as your North Star. And share with others, barter, get creative. We gotta lean on each other. We all got skills.
Well, I'll jump off of that. I think bartering and getting creative is the only way I've been able to build a business. And don't be afraid to, if you say this is what something's going to cost, and people are like, I can't afford to work with you, or I can't, like, if the money conversation doesn't link up quite well, there are so many other things that can help your business grow, that can help you get exposure to new people, to get connected to new people, all those types of things. So I think getting creative with what is going to build the network. A lot of other sessions have talked about how important the network is. So asking for things other than money, I think, are oftentimes a really, really important way to continue building your business.
I would say try to think about your business as 4-dimensional, right? Like, the first dimension sort of is under you is get your foundation right and your stance right, so you have something to evolve from. The second piece of it is know the industry that you're in, and always try to aim to sell water in the desert, right? Create the opportunity. Like don't chase what everybody else is doing. You can create those industries, and you can, after a while, some things are predictable. The third dimension above that is understand what the exit looks like. And that, I don't mean necessarily what the exit in terms of always how do you sell the business, how do you hand off, how do you sell to your employees. These are all great ideas. But ultimately, today you're doing this type of business. Tomorrow you may have a location all over the Bay Area. Okay. And your values will change. So if you're always getting closer to that goal, you're going to realize the closer you get to the end goal, you'll realize what you thought it was has changed, and the power and the influence to do that will change, right? The final one is be orthogonal, right? And what does that mean is find a business in a completely unrelated industry that gives you meaning, or industry. So for example, this is the generic one. You probably heard this story. When Airbnb was building into its massive balloon, it was trying to find stories to tell itself. And the one that it told itself was, okay, there's nothing like us. I can't learn anything here. So it went to Hollywood and it went to Disney. It found that Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, right? About, which we know through so many different indigenous stories, this idea that, a hero goes and leaves the village, goes to the underworld, gives its life, comes back and brings something back to the village. Well, that's every Disney movie. That's actually every Avengers movie. They realize that's the story of Airbnb, that it's a boring trip for you to just fly somewhere and not meet anybody. If you're going to go to New York, you should hang out with 3 people in the Bronx and learn to drum salsa for the first time. That's a good Airbnb. So they found their parallel with the movie industry. Who is your orthogonal industry that has nothing to do with what you do, but gives you meaning? Because you'll find that you'll have all these great ideas from somebody who's unrelated, but they can tell you stories about their customers that are identical to the stories of your customers. And you'll find such a support group from that. But try to find that they're not related, but they're speaking my language. And it's a different type of support and mentorship. That's my 4-dimensional analysis. And we can talk more about this. I'll leave my email and all that stuff in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you all. I really appreciate everything that y'all shared. And I just put in the chat that I would echo the building the foundational tools you need to grow your business. If folks are familiar with Upton Business Bootcamp, they're offering free business accelerator program for people of color right now. And one of the things that I saw with business owners during this crisis is that if you had your foundations in order, your licensing, your accounting and all that, you were able to pivot and sort of weather the storm a lot easier and access all this capital in a way that a lot of folks have not been able to. So, and I consider business strategy, business self-care. So do it. Take care of yourself. Take care of your business. I really love all of y'all. It's been really great to meet each and every one of you. Let's continue the conversation, y'all. So I think we're transitioning probably to the closing session in the main stage. And I would maybe put your emails in the chat for everybody, or some sort of contact, social media, how people can connect with each of you. And I'm sure Alliance will also send out some info as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you.
Thank you. That went by quick. We need longer time.
Yeah.
I know.
That was great. We just got to do more of these.
Yeah.
And we all have platforms to do this, and we can do more of these. In fact, I think I saw Ari was in here earlier. We're going to be doing a retail virtual showcase. We can plug you in. Abby, before you go, I'm really ashamed to let you know, I actually have come to your location several times and actually gotten signs from you. I live up the street from you.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
You
cool.
know where the Elmwood post office is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the White House right next door.
Oh my gosh, cool.
Yeah, I always see what you're doing.
You just
that
doxed
location
yourself,
across the street.
Brett.
I know.
I'm gonna be at
Oh,
you.
come say hi next time you come by.
Please,
I'm very happy
no.
there,
I'm
but-
always walking by there. It's always impressive stuff you're doing. Before you go, Andrew, please hit me up if you're serious. If you guys want to go see New Zealand, talk. I don't want to have that combo online, but I do.
I'm gonna hit everybody up on the panel, and I hope somebody reaches out to me from the audience so we can keep talking. Abby, I think I'm gonna need some animation, so
Let's chat.
something I've always dreamed of, and now I'm like, you know what? Do it. Do it. They said it's cost effective.
Do it.
Love you guys.
I want to
I'm
chat
out.
with you as well. I feel like we're in
of course.
the world.
I'll follow up with
Yeah.
everybody. This is amazing. Thank you,
This was-
Hope.
Thank you, Hope. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Hope.
Cheers.
Cheers.